Howdy partners, and welcome to another episode of the Howdy Partners podcast, where we give you tactical insights to do your job in the partnerships space. Ola, introduce yourself. What do you do at PartnerStack? And tell us a bit about your role.
Will and Tom. Thank you for having me. First of all, excited for the conversation today. Yes, as Will mentioned, my name's Ola. I work as a customer success manager at PartnerStack. Previously used to work at Ripon, where I led the onboarding team there. So really, customer success has really been at the heart of what I've done in my career so far. But my role at PartnerStack is where I fell in love with partnerships, and that's where that love has been kindled. And just a background in terms of what I do at PartnerStack, I manage a little over 40 accounts here, and these are vendors, software vendors, SaaS companies that work on different partnership models, all the way from affiliates to referral models to resell models to working with large distributor partners. So I really get to see the whole gamut. And I'm really grateful for that because I get to talk to and learn from a lot of partner pros in terms of what great partnership programs look like, but also maybe what not so great ones look like.
I'm a firm believer that those who have conversations with multiple people across an industry, they have a very broad set of knowledge, and that gives a lot of really robust context. And for anyone out there, if you're looking to learn more about doing better in your role, talk to people who talk to the people. So, reach out to Ola or myself, and also, just try and immerse yourself in the community because you're going to learn so much. That's why we, of course, all respect consultants because they work with so many different accounts in so many different situations. You mentioned that there have been, big programs, good programs that need some work. Talk to us about some of the fundamentals for building the partner journey. What do you come across the most often for, what a good program looks like, or even a bad program, whatever jumps to your mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll just start by saying, a lot of what I've learned as well is just standing on the shoulders of giants that came before me in the partnership community, and obviously seeing it in real time with the folks I work with. And there's so much great advice out there about this is what you should do. These are the things to do when you first start a program. But I think it's important to just start from the beginning. That's really where it all begins. And what I mean by that is recruiting partners. Partner recruitment is the first start of a program. But what I see is that partner recruitment is actually two-sided. And maybe people are thinking I'm talking about outbound recruitment versus inbound, and you're on the right track, but you're not quite there. What I mean by that is you're actually recruiting partners internally within your org and externally outside of your org. And I don't think people actually frame it that way. Oftentimes, when you look at a partnership program, the recruitment focus is really on external recruitment efforts. But you need to pay just as much attention to recruiting partners internally, and understanding who are the ideal partners within my org that I should be recruiting into my partner funnel. And I will say that's probably where partnerships fail from day one, because there's so much of a focus on external recruitment where we don't think about the people inside of our org as partners, but they're probably some of the biggest and most important partners to drive the engine of your partnership program for you forward. So that's what I would say is the foundational piece, and what I come across, and I say what the programs to succeed get right is understanding that internally, those folks that help you within, your friends in the sales org, marketing org, product org, CS org are actually your partners. They are your partners, and you need to recruit them and understand what makes them tick and how to help them succeed, because that's the only way partnership works. It's not a department, it's a strategy.
Yeah. I think it goes overlooked so many times that if you don't build proper relationships internally, whether it's marketing, CX, sales, from a partnership lens, it's critical. So, a lot of times there's I really like how you framed it too, like the two paths, more like what do you look at internally, because those processes are so important to helping you scale and build. Like for me, one of the biggest relationships that I need to make as a CAM is with our sales team. And so, I'm learning about some of our AEs, their background, where they come from, and just helping them understand what our partner journeys are, so that when referrals come in, it's very easy for them to say, okay, I understand, I understand what's going on here. I understand, like, partner leads are sometimes, or most of the time, more warm than just leads coming in inbound anyways. So how can I capitalize and tell a story? It goes back to the point that I think we've said on multiple episodes, like partnerships right now, you will always have to be your own cheerleader. Like you have to be one of the bigger cheerleaders in general. And that means putting messaging out there, like talking to sending like numerous Slack messages just to like sales team global, CX, whatever your channels are, to make sure that other teams recognize that you're there.
Making sure that those folks in sales, if you're a channel account manager, are your best friends, is important from day one. And finding a way to get them to shout from the rooftops about you puts the proof in the pudding, right, of what partnerships can really drive for the org.
And I find that interesting because you could have answered that in, so many different ways, but that was the main thing that you wanted to talk about. And so I hope listeners, if you've listened to other episodes, like Tom mentioned, we've talked about this in the past, that this is, one of the most critical things. And this is what Ola sees across so many accounts as well. Good, bad, it needs the internal partnership. So what do you advise people on then if you are hearing that they're having these challenges and maybe they didn't build those internal partnerships? How do you then get them to start building those? What's going from 0 to 1 look like for getting that internal partner org set up? What do you advise for the accounts that you work with?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that really starts with what type of partnership program are you trying to run in the first place, right? What's the right partnership motion for you? For instance, if you're maybe running an affiliate program, you might want to get really close with the folks in the marketing org, right? Understanding, okay, how can I actually tie partnership OKRs directly to what sales OKRs are? Because then when you go out and you actually do anything related to marketing, related to sort of partnerships, you are going to be driving results that are tied to the OKR of the sales, of that marketing org. On top of that, I think it's really helpful, again, thinking about partnership model that you're running and then connecting with the right folks in the org to do that, is they can actually help you build out your partnership strategy as well. So the best way to get alignment often, right, is getting people to actually build the story alongside you, because then they're part of this movement with you and they had a voice in building it. So they're more likely to actually want to act on it because they had their hands in the engineering of actually building this out. So it's not like you're going to marketing, like you've made all this, you did all of this stuff and then you're pushing it on them and say, hey, I need you guys to do all this for me. But you started with them from day one in building this partnership strategy out because you want to help drive value for the OKR. So just getting alignment that way is really powerful. So I think that's where I would start. Figure out what program you're running and then understand the OKRs within the org that are aligned to that, and actually go out and build your partnership strategy with those folks so they have a voice in it. And that'll drive a lot more alignment in terms of moving the needle forward.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in letting the experts do their expertise, for lack of a better term. And once again, like partner orgs, especially just like in general, they're not too big. And I say that lightly. I know there's very large partnership organizations out there, but in SaaS, and for the most part, you're talking about, one person shop or like 3 or 4 people. So, realistically, you need to rely on marketing. You need to rely on support. You need to rely on all these, internal enablement, operational teams to help achieve your goals. And I love the way that you frame it up, is that it's not just me advising them what to do. In turn, it's me asking for their help and having their
Mhm.
strategic input. Like we just hired at SaaS Labs, a partner marketing manager, and he's awesome. He comes from Ring Central. And the first time we met, I was like, listen, there's a lot of stuff that I have knowledge in and expertise in that I can help build. But from a different angle, you have, 2X, or we can 2X our expertise by just knowing our roles and being able to build on this together. So that, like, when I get down the road, and we're talking about building, a co-marketing guidelines for our partners, his input's there. Like I
Mhm.
want him to run with that, because then we're not pigeonholing ourselves or, like doing 20 webinars a quarter, which isn't feasible. I want him to put his brand on it and all the teams to have their hands in it.
No, I completely agree. I kind of want to jump in again there, Tom. A couple of things came to my mind. First of all, I'm gonna have to steal that term. Let the experts do their expertise, because I haven't heard that one before. But in terms of that other piece you mentioned, there's partnerships come in different shapes and sizes. I'll say I work with some smaller SaaS companies that are like 10, 15 employees as well, where I'm connecting with their VPs and C-suite, of like VP of sales or VP of marketing. So there's also a double-edged sword there. Is obviously there's alignment. Like, I'm talking with the head of the org. That's who I'm working with on a daily basis, just because of how small their shop is. But what you also find in some of those is they don't actually have the bandwidth. They have
Right.
the alignment. And that's where, something that I've been working on a bit better is noticing that early on, to say, hey, listen, you don't actually have the bandwidth to do this. I know you want to do it. You have the alignment. You might need to actually go an agency route and get uh, a fractional support, right? So someone who can work with you on a fractional basis to help you set up those foundational pieces. So even when there is alignment, the other piece is time and
Yeah.
the ability to actually execute on the alignment you have. And folks can either, obviously, if you have the resources, go in-house and hire. But if folks don't have that, especially in this macro climate, taking advantage of fractional resources like an agency or consultants is a powerful way to also execute on your strategy.
I am curious about that in the way of a common misconception that you come across, either through setting up a program or even setting up like a PRM when they start engaging with you. What are some of the misconceptions or missteps when you're talking to people, you're advising them, maybe you're talking to the VP of sales, and there's this alignment and there's this somewhat of this momentum, but what do people then get wrong, or what do people get wrong, and then you have to step in and
Yeah.
kind of do some work, maybe backtrack a little bit?
You can see me smiling
Yeah, he's got a
already,
huge
'cause
smile on his face.
I like this question, obviously, because I work in a space where, a PartnerStack, where we don't necessarily actually call ourselves a PRM. We're an ecosystem platform, because we do more than just managing a partnership program. Um, but why why this question, I like this question, is because I'm going to give a bit of a controversial opinion. But before I do that, I'll start with a story, of a vendor or of mine. So, you know, relationship starts like whenever I get a new account, very excited early about what we can do and what we can achieve, right? And one of the first things we do when I get a new vendor is a success planning call, and I try to do this on a quarterly basis. And in our success planning call, right, the vendor, you ask me, what are some of your goals, what are the OKRs, what are you trying to achieve? And they this vendor zoned in right away and says, I want to make $1 million, in 9 months. And I want to get 50 partners, right? So I said, okay, let's put that down now. What are some of the, what are the goals or what are the motions we're going to do? And, we talked about some marketing initiatives, going to events to connect with partners, inviting some partners that they have in their network, and all of these things. So we were like, okay, this looks like a good start. Let's, go out and start doing some of these motions, start connecting with folks in events, going out and doing that. And basically, 3 months go by, zero revenue. 4 months go by, no revenue. 5 months go by, no revenue. 6 months go by, no revenue. And I will say though, the partners are actually ticking up here. So there are like, maybe 40 odd partners at this point. But at the 6 month mark, conversation sours a bit, and the finger pointing starts here, saying, why isn't this working, right? And when you're pointing fingers, right? What do you typically need when you're doing that, other than the finger? What do you need?
Someone to point to.
Someone to point it to, right? So you need a fall guy. And I'll preface this by saying being a PM is hard as heck. It's one of the most difficult jobs, right? Anyone in a partnership position, you wear multiple hats. And the reason why I'm prefacing that is saying, if it comes between, in this climate, especially in the macroeconomic conditions, losing my job or pointing a finger at the software, I'm probably going to use the software as a fall guy of saying why this program isn't working, right? So that's just to say, even by that 6 month mark, they already made the decision to say, this isn't working. And we're not generating revenue because your software isn't doing that, right? So, and do you know what's crazy about that story?
What?
That's just one vendor. I've seen that movie so many times, right? And there's this general narrative, right, that basically says, I bought your software. Why isn't it generating all this revenue for me? I did the thing. I bought the software, and I got all these partners. Why aren't they generating revenue? That's it, right? That's all that goes into it, and that's just not true. So the reason why I'm gonna come back to your initial question about misconceptions in the PRM, and what I'll actually say is that the bedrock of your program is your partnership processes and setting up the fundamentals of that before any software. I think you need to have your fundamentals and foundations of how your processes and your partnership motion work before you start a program. Because the truth is, garbage in, garbage out, right? Like what a software does, it doesn't matter if it's PartnerStack or Excel or anything, is it automates your process, right? So if you have a garbage process and you throw it into a machine, it's going to accelerate the garbage that comes out and automate. That's all the machine does, right? It's not going to make the process for you. A lot of that hard work has to be done outside of the machine, right? The machine just follows algorithms and instructions, right? And this is something that I've been in CS. I know it's not just, it's with any piece of software, right? It's this idea of, I bought the software. Why isn't it doing the thing for me, right? A lot of software is often underutilized just because folks don't know how to use it right or don't have the right processes in place. And there's an education gap there that I'm passionate about working on filling, and I have some ideas of how to do that. But process first.
Dude, so it's so funny when I remember like the mutual success plan. I when we were with PartnerStack at Vidyard, I worked with Daryl. Love Daryl.
Daryl is unreal. The OG.
Yeah, man, he's awesome. But then like you fast forward and you brought up two really good points. One, so you talked about tech either being underutilized. I think that's one facet. The other side I see is there's way too much tech. Like you have so much tech bloat. Like we've got SalesLoft, we've got Chili Piper, we have Salesforce, we also have HubSpot, but also it becomes, that's where you start to see the underutilization, is because you just have, you're so like surface level in all your tech pieces. But on top of that, it's like, okay, I can buy the car, I bought the map, why am I not going anywhere? And it goes back to the idea, to your point, of cementing and solidifying accountability and relationships with the proper people internally, especially if you're talking to a vendor who, C-suite level or whatever it may be, or like, I want to generate X by Y or X to Y by when. Okay, well, do they truly understand, one, the gaps that the technology, if they're purchasing technology, that solves, but also a very firm understanding that you still need to have someone drive the technology. You have to have someone drive the car. You have to have your AEs performing to see the true power of this technology. So that's been kind of like the story in partnerships. Like a lot of times C-suite level, like, let's do it. And then a year later, let's not do it, because
Exactly.
it's fundamentally a long-term play. It just is. And so you need to have, I would say, like, being able to deliver that messaging as you're working on strategies. I think your point is great on the processes. Like, I'm a partner ops person through and through, and sometimes it runs the ugly head. That's what I'm trying to get at, in a lot of different ways, and just like organization and like really like figuring out and plugging the holes in something so small early on to say, like, listen, in 5 months, you're going to be happy that I built this G Drive folder for partner marketing assets.
Yeah.
Oh man, you just touched on a lot of good points there.
Couldn't agree more. Love to hear your take on this, Will.
Yeah, I think what it can come down to is what you're measuring as well. So if they're measuring, I just need volume of partners, I just need dollars, then like, sure, you're going to chase the volume of partners, but that may be the wrong metric to actually focus on, especially when you are, implementing a new system or starting a new program. And so I think when you were mentioning, like, in that example that you gave, they were potentially chasing the wrong things. Not saying that revenue is, something you shouldn't chase, or that the number of partners is something that you shouldn't chase, but there should be the other factors. So I'm curious your take on, like, if you are asked, what's the first thing that I should be measuring, what would that be? So what did this person maybe measure incorrectly that they were incentivized to chase after? What would you put in place? What would you say is that number one thing that people should measure when they're building the program or implementing a system?
Yeah. Another great question. And I think it goes back to a few things as well. Again, what type of program are you even running, right? I can give you the cop out answer then, say measure what matters to that program, right? But let's assume, if you're running an not an affiliate, let's look at a referral program this time, right? If you're running a referral program, again, tying what you're measuring to what matters to the orgs, right? So if you're running an affiliate a referral program, I keep mixing those two up. You want to figure out what matters to the folks down the sales funnel, right? Because referral program kind of comes down the sales funnel, warmer leads, lower in the journey there. So you're likely looking at stats that are important to your sales, your CS, or to some extent maybe your product org as well, and then feeding that in. So what I would recommend then is treating once you know what the OKRs are and what matter to, let's say, a sales org, for instance, right? And let's say maybe they want to drive X amount of revenue, or they want to increase average deal size by X. Now you need to treat your funnel from the beginning, even your partner recruitment funnel. So what's the first step in even recruiting a partner, right? Maybe the first thing you need to measure is how many people do you have? How many internal partners do you have, right? So that could be just a good proxy from day one, right? And then from there, you can go to, okay, what is my total addressable market of the actual partners that I have that are referral partners in that space? And then from there, you can start to add a dollar value, right, to that and say, okay, these partners, based on, some estimated numbers, if each of these partners close X amount of deals, right? So let's say I say each partner, if they close 3 deals, they're gonna generate $300, and I find 100 partners, that's about 30,000, right? So you can start putting dollar values to that. The reason why that's important is when you start doing any motions, right? So if I do recruitment motion, right? If I go out and I say I'm going to an event this week to look at potential partners, there's 10 potential partners, I can put a dollar value on what those partners can bring in, right? So I can talk to it in a way that makes sense to folks. So I'll say measure what matters, and all the way through your partnership funnel, put the metric to what matters to the org on that. So at the very beginning of it, right? If we're talking in the sales org, we want to talk dollars, average deal value, and whatnot. But I think the first step is probably to figure out how many internal partners do I have, and then on the external partner side, you can start looking at it from a dollar value, even from the potential partners you have, all the way down to the folks that actually end up closing deals for you.
Yeah, I think that's an important point where it can't just be total revenue and number of partners. Those are almost like givens, in my opinion, where it's like you need to do
Yeah,
that regardless, but you need to
exactly.
track more metrics to make sure that you're delivering success to those people that you serve internally. So, you went through some examples, but if it's the sales org, maybe it's meetings booked. Maybe
Exactly.
it's, like the speed to closing of deals, because those are going to be important for partners stepping in. And then, of course, marketing, it could be things like traffic, or, net new newsletter signups. Like, I think people need to be creative and focus in on what is that internal partner that I'm trying to serve, and then what do they care about? What are their metrics, and how can I amplify those? Not just the given data points of we need revenue, we need more partners.
Yeah, and as you said, like meeting booked, all of that stuff, you can put a dollar value as well on it and stuff, right? To be like and the other piece of it is there's also the qualitative side of telling stories, right? Of like even just by visibly talking about the partners you're going after, folks might internally get excited about that and want to help you along the way as well. So, talking it out with your org and folks around you is really powerful.
Love it. So just wrapping up, we always leave our audience with one tactical tip. So if you were to give that one tactical tip to our audience based on what we talked about today, or anything that you just love to tell people, what is that one thing that they could implement, right when they're listening this, or, the next day? What is that one tactical tip that they could do?
That's a great one. I'm gonna cheat here, maybe give two just because I'm feeling nice today. I think the first one feeds off of what we just talked about is really measuring what matters and talking it through with data that speaks to what matters to different departments, right? Whether it's top of funnel leads and traffic for marketing, dollar value on closed deals, for sales, thinking about the reduction in churn for CS, the increase in adoption for a product. You can have every activity, every single thing you do every day as a partner pro, you can attach that metric to say, we're doing this because we believe it's going to have X amount of impact. And these are the folks that we're talking to, right? So I think it's really important for you to do that. And one tactic is figuring out what those data points are and doing a weekly newsletter report to everyone in the org. It doesn't have to be crazy to start. Let's say you pick 4 metrics, maybe even 3 metrics, right? That matter. And you can basically say, here's what we did this week because we believe it's going to move these 3 metrics. And you can start telling stories, right? A couple of things that allows is it holds you accountable as a partner professional as well to go out and do your thing every week. And on top of that, it gets visibility because I think Tom mentioned earlier, you're going to have to be your biggest marketer. No one really knows what you're doing. You don't want to be on an island. So you need to talk through what you're doing with the rest of the org. So weekly newsletter, just a weekly report. Doesn't have to be a newsletter, actually just simple 3 or 4 data points of what you're doing and how they're moving the key metrics for those different orgs that matter. And then the next one here that kind of feeds into that is with partner recruitment. In general, folks struggle a lot with partner recruitment because a lot of times they try to just go out and cold message folks. I'm not saying cold messaging doesn't work, but the success rate is a lot harder. So how can you increase your conversion rate with recruiting partners? It's actually simple. I know, Partner Hacker talks about this a lot, but it is really true. It's to live in market, right? Living in market. Part of the reason why I'm connected with you, Will, today is because I live in market, and that's how we started our relationship, right? But what does that look like on a granular level? I'll give you a very granular example of that. If I have a sales software and maybe I want to connect with folks in sales consultants, sales coaches, folks that can, talk through sales solutions, what do I want to do? I want to join the communities they're in, right? There's tons of communities, whether it's Slack communities, websites out there. I want to sign up for sales newsletters. I want to go that sales newsletters for sales consultants, right? And those folks and sales coaches. I want to go to webinars where sales consultants and sales coaches are participating in. If you go on meetup.com, there's meetups for professionals in these spaces as well. So you can go to find folks in your city today that are having live meetups to actually meet and talk to them. Go to conferences, join LinkedIn groups. The reason why this is important is that first of all, you're going to be plugged into knowing what the pains of these folks are, who you want to be your partner deeply, because you're engaging with them, you're listening to what they're saying, you're just absorbing information. The other piece is you become a familiar face, even before you ask to partner with them, right? They already know you because oh, I saw you at that meetup. Oh, I saw you at the webinar. You're part of this community here. And you can use that, right, as a fuel to actually connect with folks, because when you actually reach out to them, you're likely a familiar face. And I think a really important way to also reach out isn't to say, hey, come partner with me. It's to approach it from a point of curiosity and learning. And the way I would say is come from a place of, if I actually want someone to join my program, I might not start right away by saying, hey, join my program. What I would say is, hey, I'm building and looking to improve my partnership program, and I'd appreciate some of your time in actually helping me build a world-class program, because you are, an expert in this space, and I really appreciate your time. Also remember, give first, right? Offer to grab them a virtual coffee and maybe send them a gift card in exchange for their time. Offer them access to your product in exchange for their time. Another thing is maybe you offered to put them in a raffle for a conference or an event that matters to that group. So live in market is going to increase your conversion rates for recruiting partners, because you're not an outsider anymore. You're living in the same space as your partners and you understand their pain. That's a long-winded answer, but I think it's the missing piece in a lot of programs right now, that, you're living in the market of your products, but not necessarily in the market of your partners. And you need to live in the market of your partners.
Yeah. And I think that's, we opened with, you have context, you speak to a lot of people, and it's not just through your day-to-day role. You truly do live in market. I actually have a LinkedIn post going out about exactly that, and about, how we met, how we got onto the podcast. And obviously there's some roundabout benefit for PartnerStack, because, it's exactly the relevancy to our audience for a tool that people can use. And so this wasn't paid, it wasn't planned. It's not some massive strategic initiative, but when you're living in market, you just happen to have these opportunities and these interesting conversations and all this context. So I definitely urge anyone who is listening to listen to that back again, take some notes and start actioning it. And then of course, check out what I posted, and of course what Ola posts, because you'll see that he does live through this. So Ola, thank you so much for your wisdom and context and all of this information. We will catch you all on the next episode of the Howdy Partners podcast. And Ola, we're definitely going to get you back on. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you so much for having me, and excited to keep this conversation going.
For sure. Thanks, everyone.